Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about Starfinder. Specifically, I'm going to talk about the races and the classes, but first I really want to talk about the physical book itself. So, the new Starfinder physical book is incredibly impressive. Now, I want to be open about this. I bought the $9.99 PDF directly from Paizo, and I will say that was a very, very nice experience. It was very straightforward. It wasn't difficult to order that book. I was able to get it immediately. But actually, it seems like a small thing, but I actually just picked up the book at Barnes and Nobles, and it was on the shelf there. And I actually sat down and I looked through it a bit, and it really was fantastically well done. It looked like the binding was well done. The colors were gorgeous, and this is a 530-page book, right? That is a beefy book, and so I think I would bet that the print run for Starfinder was between 1,000 and 10,000 books, right? And maybe as high as 20. I highly doubt there were more than 20,000 books printed. And so I just want to say, I really do think it's incredibly important and it's incredibly useful that Paizo published this as a physical book. And the reason why is that Barnes & Noble bookshelf. So that Barnes & Noble bookshelf, I have to admit, I am a huge RPG fan. There's really very few things, I'm a Christian husband and a father. Those, like that's my world, right? After those three things, TRPG is very high up there. And I have really started buying way less physical books. And the reason why is the physical book for Starfinder is $60, right? But the PDF is 10. So, the PDFs are just such a value comparatively that I am increasingly buying PDFs. So, I will say, when do I get physical books? I get at least one physical book every year for Christmas, and sometimes two. I'll ask for my family for one, and for my parents for one. And I'm blessed that where in both of those spaces there's enough money floating around where I can really do something luxurious. And I think buying a physical book nowadays is really luxurious. I don't really feel like it's not worth the value anymore. But if you want to just, as they would say on Parks and Rec, treat yourself, it's a really nice way to treat yourself. And that's what it really feels like to me. It's like a spa day or something. It's just, I really enjoy it. And so I really, now I know there are people out there with a lot more money than me, or with the same amount of money than me and different priorities, or the same amount of money than me and maybe less, a smaller family or no wife or whatever. But those people, they can go to that bookshelf and they can buy that book there. And man, I do not take that for granted. Let's talk about it. The Barnes & Noble bookshelf is incredibly important. One, there are there's multiple Barnes & Nobles in every state. They have I think they have 500 to 1,000 stores all over the United States of America. And they're going to be the big purchaser for physical tabletop role-playing game books. And, and I really like that they're out there. And I like that when there is a day I can go to Barnes & Noble, I can pick one up if I don't go to my FLGS. But let's just talk about the FLGS, right? The Friendly Local Gaming Shop. That, is increasingly rare, okay? They're not everywhere. They're not, there aren't a lot of them. And the Friendly Local Game Shop, there just aren't a lot of them. And even more than that, when you talk about the tabletop role-playing game shelf at your Friendly Tabletop Role-Playing, at your FLGS, I have some local gaming shops that just have Magic, that just have Warhammer, that just have board games, right? And that might not even have not even have a single tabletop role-playing game shelf at all, right? So that Barnes & Noble, shelf that just has 20, 30, maybe 50 tabletop role-playing games on it, that is a big, important thing to our industry. It's critical, right? Now that shelf needs new stuff on it. It needs new books to put on it. And they can't all just come from WotC, right? We have to show that this is an actually viable market. And Paizo did a lot of work, and they put out a beautiful, beautiful physical book. And that means a lot. And my hat is off to them for doing that thing, because that is incredibly hard. You need to get an ISBN, and you need to get good artists, and you need to get good printers, and you have to do all the hard work of getting that done. You need to have that book in place. You need to meet schedules. It is incredibly difficult, and I really, really appreciated that they went to the trouble to get that physical book out there. And even though I didn't buy one, I'm really glad that it's there. And if I ever had 10 times the money I have now, I like the idea of knowing that it's there. If I ever had to kind of spray the money forward kind of money, but it is. It's not a small thing. It's important to me that those physical books are there, and I really am excited that they did the work to get it there. And my hat is off to Paizo for getting that physical book out there, for making sure there's something exciting this year on that shelf that's not just coming from Wizards of the Coast. Because I'll tell you right now, it is hard. I think there are increasingly few companies that are putting books on that shelf, on that Barnes & Noble shelf, all over the country, in multiple Barnes & Nobles. And so I really, really appreciate that Paizo did that. All right, now let's talk about races and classes. Starfinder races were the absolute highlight of this book for me. They were incredibly well executed. The android, nailed it. I really like the way they dealt with it as a construct, but also as a living being, and the powers, really well balanced, really well done. Good addition to the game. It fit really logically. Very, very cool. Kasatha. I like the design of the Kasatha. The forearms, really, really cool. I definitely think they should have allowed it to have 4 attacks. Now, people are going to go, well, if you have that thing have 4 arms in the Pathfinder community, nobody's going to play anything else. Well, I think what they should have done is they should have balanced it, right? Give it the 4 arms, right? But also, what I would do is I would have changed it and said that there was a time where the Kasatha were subservient to another on another planet. They were subservient to another species on another planet, and that overall their demeanor is very subservient, which means that one, they wouldn't really attack until somebody else on the team attacked, and that they would never determine what happened in a group, right? Like, they would always be a follower, and that they would have to bind themselves to somebody on the group and really kind of base all their actions off of that, right? And that way, you get your guys who can have their, you get your people who can have their full-on 4 attacks, which a lot of people wanted to do, which you currently can't do in the game, right? Because it would utterly break the game. But then they would be paying a narrative price for that, right? And I'm really curious why they didn't go down that road. It's possible that wouldn't have flied, and that, I don't know. You know what? I don't want to speak ill of the Pathfinder community itself, because that's generally, I think, who's going to be playing this game is the Pathfinder community. Maybe a few new people. I'm not sure there's going to be a lot of new people coming in on Starfinder that didn't play Pathfinder. It'll be interesting to see. Okay, and Kasatha is really interesting. Vesk, perfect. A big lizard tank class that I loved everything about. I love their world. I love their look. Visually stunning. Really, really well designed. Just really, really solid. Vesk, I really are solid, and they are my favorite. I really like the Vesk a lot. You know what? It might be a tie between the Vesk and the Yosoki. I really like the Yosoki a lot. So let's talk about the Yosoki next. Yosoki, perfect. Absolutely perfect. Extremely well done. I really they were so well done. Same as the Vest, just really looked great. Really crafted well, a really, really well built race, right? The Sheeran, another, just knocked it out of the park, a near perfect, race. I really like their insectile nature, all the information about the hive mind, all of that. Really, really well done. The Lashunta. I really felt the Lashunta were an overlap. Excuse me. They were an overlap for the Ashirin. They really weren't distinct enough. And then let's talk about the humans, okay? So one, I love the races in Starfinder, but I would have changed some stuff up, right? So the human is always a problem in a lot of tabletop role-playing games, and it's like, hey, do you like vanilla ice cream? Well, there's the human, right? And I'm always a little like, let's do something here, right? And so I really feel they had an opportunity. So what I would have done with humans is I would have said humans are incredibly rare, right? So they're only maybe 5 or 10% of their species has even survived. They're incredibly rare, okay? Then what I would have done with the Lashunta is I would have gotten rid of the Lashunta's insectile aspects, which already overlap with the Ashirans, right? Those little antennas. It's weird. And I would have just made them humanoid, look and size exactly like humans, right? With modeled skin. And their colors were always, were changing, right? So this Lashunta might have purple and white, and this Lashunta, a different one, might have black and orange, or whatever it is, right? But then also, I would have, by the way, I really like the part about the Kasatha with the mouth and the mouth covered. I think it really gave a great story aspect to that race that a good player can do a lot with. Just could bring up some really cool moments, and it was a really great cultural touch for the Kasatha. But I would have moved that whole thing over to the Lashunta and taken it further, right? And I would have said that the Lashunta are never seen, none of their skin is ever seen, and they always go hooded and covered head to toe, right? And then what I would have done is I would have went further than that and said that the Lashunta were a race that were allied with the humans, and because of their own weird cultural, different cultural different cultural aspect of them being covered head to toe, never being seen, and wearing opaque helmeted visors, right? None of their skin is ever seen. That all of the humans that are left actually masquerade as Lashunta. And I would have taken them out of the game completely. So in that you could play a human, but that human is always masquerading as a Lashunta, right? And I think that would have made, that way the human isn't they're not just a vanilla race. And I think it would have given more, it would have tied two of the races together a little better. And so that's just the direction I would have went, right? But overall, the races were fantastic. All right, the classes for Starfinder. I think there's quite a few. The Envoy was kind of like a diplomat, really solid class. Soldier, it's a classic. It's the fighter. It's there, and I had no beef with them putting him in just that way. The Mystic and the Technomancer. I had problems with both of these classes. All of the problems are tied to the world, basically I feel like since the game doesn't have dwarf and elf and human deities, then really the Mystic and the Necromancer really don't, and the Technomancer, they don't make sense. By the way, I didn't like the Technomancer when they added the Technomancer to Shadowrun. I think Technomancers are fundamentally flawed. They don't belong in any game, and it's just a bad idea, and it's just bad writing, and I don't think a Technomancer belongs in any game personally. So I was a little sad to see it here. The Mystic is just kind of it didn't really fit for me. The Operative, really interesting. It really feels like a ranger to me, and I think there's a good space for that, right? Mechanic is very, very obvious. It's a really good solid fit for this specific game. It makes a lot of sense to put it there, and it's solid class, right? Solarian, best class I've read in any tabletop role-playing game outside of Blades of the Dark. It is brilliant. Solarian is a pure innovation, awesome idea. I was super excited to see that class perfectly executed. Solarian is innovative, awesome feel, just super cool, really cool. So I really liked them a lot. I think I would have added another base. One thing I would have went down this road on is I would have made base classes that were locked to specific. I would give in every single race a race locked class, a class that only that race could take, right? And so, like, a good example of this would be a Gremlock, right? So a Gremlock would be a Yosoki who was similar to a mechanic, but essentially a Gremlock would be attached to a vehicle or a ship, a vehicle and a ship, right? And that essentially when a Gremlock goes into a ship or goes into a vehicle, if they have even 1d4 hours to connect to that ship or that vehicle, they enhance everything to maximum perfect and even take it above and beyond. And essentially this would be like, thinking of that Gremlock just going through all the tunnels and all the little, galley chutes and, in a ship, and just really making that thing special and having almost like a symbiotic relationship with the ship or with the vehicle, right? And so I think that'd be really cool. And then I would have went that direction with everything. I would have went, a race-locked class, base class, that every single race got, in addition to all the classes which can be taken by any race. So I would have added that in there. Although, I have to say, like, they did a tremendous amount. Like, it's 530 pages long. I realize, there's a lot there. All right, so let's talk about themes. They also put themes in the game, and there was a lot of good ones. There's Ace Pilot, Bounty Hunter, Icon, Mercenary, Outlaw, Priest, Scholar. There's quite a few. There was Spacefarer, Xenoseeker, and then last there was Themeless, right? And so, I really think they were really solid, and they gave a lot of extra flavor. I didn't have any beef with, it being similar to D&D 5e backgrounds. Backgrounds have been in tabletop role-playing games since the 80s or 90s. It's nothing new. It's absolutely doable by any tabletop role-playing game that wants to do it. I thought it was really, well done. Particularly, I was very, very impressed. So, races, classes, themes, all solid. All really, really solid in this game. The only fall down was the world for Starfinder. So that's my take on the physical book, the races, the classes, and the themes. Take care.